You ever feel like the human mind is just the most complicated, fascinating, and, let's be honest, baffling thing in the universe? We've got all this modern science, but we're still figuring ourselves out. Well, what if I told you one of the best guides to our inner world isn't new at all?
What if one of the most thorough, insightful, and, believe it or not, hilarious guides to what we now call depression was written 400 years ago? Yeah, that's exactly what we're digging into today, a masterpiece from 1621 that feels like it could have been written yesterday.
So, here's our game plan. First up, we're going to meet the guy who wrote this incredible book. Then, we'll slice into the masterpiece itself. After that, we'll explore its universe of ideas, meet his fascinating alter ego, and finally, we'll get into why this ancient text still hits so close to home.
So, who was the brilliant mind behind all of this? Let's meet the man who literally wrote the book on sadness.
The man's name was Robert Burton. And when I say he was a polymath, I mean this guy was a one-man intellectual universe. We're talking about a scholar, a writer, a clergyman who was obsessed with everything from medicine and philosophy to psychology and literature. He was basically the human equivalent of the internet in the 17th century. But here's the real kicker. This wasn't just some dusty academic project for him. Burton himself struggled deeply with melancholy. Writing this enormous book was his own way of dealing with it, his personal therapy. He was dissecting the subject to try and understand his own mind.
Okay, so we've met the man. Now for his masterpiece. And honestly, just calling it a book doesn't do it justice. It's more like a sprawling 17th century encyclopedia of the human mind.
This thing first hit the shelves way back in 1621. It was Burton's life's work, an absolutely exhaustive dive into what we'd now call depression, but seen through the eyes of a world that was a mix of Renaissance thinking and medieval tradition.
Now, you might think a book this massive would be a total mess, right? Nope. Burton was super methodical. He breaks the whole thing down into 3 clear parts. First, what causes melancholy. Second, what it looks and feels like. And third, how you can try to cure it. It's a surprisingly logical roadmap through a very complex topic. But look, if you're picturing some dry, old medical text, think again. This book is an absolute universe of ideas. It's about way more than just medicine. I mean, the sheer range here is staggering. Burton doesn't just talk about sadness, he gets specific. He dives into religious melancholy, love melancholy, which is a big one, even the melancholy that scholars feel. He ties it all into these huge human experiences like grief, ambition, and despair. And to back all this up, he pulled from, well, everything. Seriously, he's quoting classical philosophers, medieval texts, Renaissance thinkers, literature, mythology, science. He even throws in astrology. This was a grand synthesis of pretty much all of Western knowledge up to that point. Okay, so I know what you're thinking. This sounds incredibly heavy, but here's the secret sauce. The book is actually funny. It is packed with scholarly knowledge, for sure, but it's also overflowing with wit, irony, and really personal, relatable insights. The guy was a master of blending high-minded ideas with a kind of dry, self-aware humor.
And a lot of that unique voice comes from a kind of character Burton created for himself, which just adds another whole fascinating layer to this work.
So, he wrote under the name Democritus Junior. Now, why that name? Well, the original Democritus was an ancient Greek philosopher who was known as the laughing philosopher because he thought the follies of mankind were just absurd and kind of funny. So Burton takes on this persona of a wise, satirical observer looking down on it all. And this duality is really the key to the whole book. You've got 2 things happening at once. On one side, there's Robert Burton, the man, looking inward, trying to figure out his own sadness. On the other side, you have Democritus Junior, the persona, looking outward and critiquing all the things in society, the greed, the ambition, the silliness that make us all miserable. It's brilliant. So let's be real for a second. A huge, dense, 400-year-old book written by a melancholy scholar. Why on earth should we care about it today? What makes it so timeless? Well, for one, its influence is just undeniable. For centuries, it's been a secret weapon for other great writers. In the 18th century, a guy like Samuel Johnson loved it. In the 19th, romantic poets like John Keats were totally inspired by it. And today, it fits right into our modern conversations about mental health in a way that is just uncanny.
But at the end of the day, the reason this book lasts is because it's so profoundly human. Burton's deep, compassionate, and sharp-witted take on sorrow, on anxiety, on just how messy our emotions are, it feels completely modern. He's reminding us that none of this is new.
We've been feeling this way for a very, very long time.
And that kind of leaves you with a big question, doesn't it? As we're all trying to navigate our own complicated lives, you have to wonder, how many of our so-called modern anxieties are really just echoes bouncing across 4 centuries from the pages of a book that saw it all coming?